Stranger Things had the cast go from running away from scary monsters to fighting them and just living every moment, not knowing what would spring up next. In the same breath, the actors found a way to meet up with the strange events on set by improvising some of their scenes. And the insane thing is that these unscripted moments are so good that they were kept in the show, and they are the most emotional and realistic scenes from the show. Being an actor on the set of Stranger Things means a readiness for some intense actions and running around, especially from Millie Bobby Brown, who portrays Eleven as you won't believe the moment Eleven collapsed in the show is unscripted. The action is also very unintentional, as Millie didn't know that would happen. But then, she got so exhausted acting in the sauna scene that she fell right into Finn Wolfhard's hands, which worried him as he looked to the director to ensure nothing terrible was happening to Millie. However, this part was kept in the show for good reasons, such as how well it relates to Eleven. In the show, Eleven often gets exhausted after using her powers, and Millie getting so tired after doing that on set was a beautiful moment that couldn't be let go. Another heartbreaking moment was unscripted in the show, and that's the scene in which Lucas cried for help.
Stay with me, Max. Hang on, just hang on. I got help.
From the pain in his voice and how emotional he was in that scene, it's hard to believe he didn't prepare for that moment. But Caleb just knew at that instant to include that line with how deeply he was into the role. It's wild how good these young actors are as they continue to improvise many of the emotional scenes in ways that increase the depth and meaning of these moments. And you couldn't have imagined the creative way Joseph Quinn used in improvising this scene.
And it's finally my year. I love you, Dad.
The scene where Eddie passes away is already so sad, and Joseph adding that line further wrecked everything into intense sadness. Gaten stayed in character by responding, "I love you too," which further solidified it. Moving away a bit from the sad, unscripted moments in Stranger Things, Eddie Munson is a great character who had such incredible moments, which is one of the reasons why it was hard for fans to see him go. And the ironic thing about the cast Joseph is that he improvised in many of his scenes, and this particular one is beyond hilarious.
You saying Sinclair's been taken in by the dark side?
Something like that?
Something like that? Jesus Christ.
Throwing the cookie and repeating the last words they said to him wasn't part of the script, but Joseph was so much into the character to notice he went out of the script to give the fans that iconic moment. The craziest thing is the natural reaction from the characters of Finn and Gaten because they weren't expecting the cookie thrown at them. It's so funny how Gaten called Jesus Christ due to the shock, but it's more surprising to see Joseph get back into the script with none of them breaking character. It was so good that the director had no choice but to keep it in. Another insane moment in Stranger Things is when Eddie gives himself a chest punch, which is unscripted.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I wouldn't remember me either, Chrissy. Honestly.
This moment initially scared Grace, who portrayed Chrissy, until she realized Joseph was having fun and had to laugh because it was almost unexpected to do something like that randomly, even if it was required in the script. But then, Joseph continued to improvise many of his words in this scene, and it was clear he was indeed just being himself when he asked a question in an improvised line following his chest punch.
I have stuff in my hair?
Since it wasn't scripted that he fell dramatically like that, asking if there are leaves in his hair was also clearly not supposed to be in the conversation. Interestingly, he didn't stop there as he uttered another iconic line that wasn't in the script.
And other good news, flattery works with me, so...
It's not very hard to see why every fan of the show fell in love with Eddie even though he was a new cast member in season 4, as this moment where he made a random comment on how the mask was affecting him was also improvised by Joseph, who just wanted to get the mask off his face.
I'm suffocating.
At one point, his improvisation became so much that his co-stars became confused when he made another comment that wasn't included in the script.
Harrington's got her. Don't you, big boy?
You could tell from how Joe looked back at him because he didn't know how to respond as it wasn't a part of the script. However, as if that wasn't enough, Eddie started banging his head as they drove, which was also not part of the plan.
Not every day you lose your house and car in one fell swoop.
It's super convenient and enjoyable for Joseph to have come up with these random actions on the set of Stranger Things because they align with his character. Interestingly, improvisation with Joseph doesn't end at being fun or making hilarious comments alone, as it sometimes involves play fighting, which he had with Gaten during one of their characters' scenes.
That's some good ones.
What are you doing? You son of a bitch. No wedgies, no wedgies!
As best buddies on and off the set of Stranger Things, it's pretty ironic how Gaten didn't hold back from playing along after Joseph initiated the fight, and that's the reason their characters are such good friends with fantastic chemistry in the show. Just like Eddie was set up to become deceased in the show, Billy's fate was also made to turn out that way, and many people were upset to see that happen. However, the actor Dacre gave a mind-blowing performance in which he improvised a moment in the heartbreaking sauna scene.
You kids think this is some kind of sick prank, huh? You little shits think this is funny?
Headbutting the window on the door wasn't scripted, and it was Dacre's idea to add more action to the scene, which came out great and had to be kept in. Despite every scary scene in the show, how emotions are interpreted makes everything wholesome and real. In this scene with Billy and Eleven, you didn't know Millie improvised touching Dacre's face. The script didn't include this action, but Millie deciding to create an emotional connection between her character and Dacre's character was a life-changing decision that they couldn't afford to keep away from the final cut. The relationship between Hopper and Joyce has been a great one to watch on the screen, and one of the stability the Hawkins kids need in their battle with the Upside Down. However, despite the cast, David Harbour and Winona Ryder being just colleagues on set, they launched into an unscripted romantic moment when they met again to film a scene in season 4.
I am not having another funeral.
So, instead of doing whatever was in the script, they both agreed to include kissing on the day of filming, even though they weren't instructed to do so. While still on unscripted kisses, guess who had their first kiss on the set even though it wasn't scripted? Sadie Sink. So, towards the end of season 2, Max kissed Lucas even though it wasn't in the script, but Sadie was aware she would be doing it after one of the Duffer brothers hinted to her about the unscripted kiss earlier in the day before they started filming. Sadie was initially stressed about the situation because kissing wasn't in the script. Ross Duffer mentioned he was teasing Sadie, who ended up taking it so strongly, and then he had to make it real, and Sadie ended up doing the kiss in the end. However, this unscripted kiss wasn't generally accepted by the fans when it was filmed, because both Sadie and Caleb were kids at the time. Another loving relationship that has blossomed right before our eyes is that of Mike and Eleven. That moment where he tried to tell her he loved her but ended up rambling was wholly improvised.
What I want to say is that I know that
That's the copy.
When he couldn't find the words again, he started to ramble, and it made sense for the production to keep it in as it aligned with what was happening in the scene. One of the reasons Stranger Things is super successful is because the professional cast knows when to improvise, just in case things aren't going to plan without ruining the shoot. And that's what Brett, who plays Murray, did here.
Oops.
The egg dropping was not a part of the script, but when it dropped, Brett reacted naturally, and they almost burst into a big laugh with Nancy holding back her laugh, but it was super amazing how they handled it and made the scene look so authentic. Speaking about when props on set decide to take over a scene, just like how Murray's egg dropped without being in the script, Eleven also had many of those moments in the script, but in this case, it wasn't accidental.
Call the police. Excuse me, young lady.
For this scene, Eleven was meant to grab only one box of waffles just so she could have something to eat, but Millie decided against that as soon as they started filming to grab every box of waffles she could hold. This unscripted action was kept in and impacted Millie's character, where her love for waffles was explored, and it became a big food in the Stranger Things franchise based on this single improvised scene. Hopper had a lot of fun while filming the earlier scenes on the Stranger Things set. When he forgot his line in one scene, he switched the words, which still made sense, so they kept it in.
Well, we've discussed this. Mornings are for coffee and contemplation.
However, in that scene, he was meant to say, "Mornings are for contemplation and coffee." But then David forgot his lines, messed it up, and made it look awesome still. In Season 3, we saw another extremely emotional moment when Eleven read the letter Hopper wrote to her before his temporary demise. While reading the loving words Hopper had written to her, Eleven cried her heart out. This scene was so heartbreaking that many fans cried along, and the interesting thing about this moment is that Millie revealed that she wasn't just crying as her character but also as herself, which made everything look real. She mentioned that she hadn't read the letter beforehand or heard Hopper's pre-recorded voice, which made her reaction on the spot very raw.